Okay, WoT tank review time. Today we're going to be looking at this tank, the Matilda IV. If I had to quick describe it, I'd say this is a very underappreciated tank, largely due to power creep and the introduction of the Tier 4 British Matilda. This baby. Uh, this is, if you notice, this is a Tier 4 medium tank. This is a Tier 5 medium tank. Now, what makes this a Tier 5 medium tank? Well, this is a Tier 4 medium tank. And its hit points are much higher. Uh, its engine power is also higher. If we look at its engine, it has a 274 horsepower engine. The top engine on the Matilda has around 190 horsepower. So this tank is a little bit sportier than the Matilda II, though it's still very slow at only 25 kph top speed. Its traverse speed is roughly the same, though the Matilda IV does traverse noticeably faster due to the higher horsepower engine. And hull armor and turret armor are identical across the board to the Matilda II. The main difference between the two tanks is the gun selection. Let's just take a look here. Okay. This right here, this 2-pounder with Little John adapter, which is a little thing you screw onto the end that makes the shell basically become denser as it comes out of the barrel, like the German conical gun on the 3601. It's a very low caliber gun, 40mm gun, with a very high rate of fire and extraordinary penetration for its caliber. This is one of the highest penetration guns at Tier 4. It has very low damage, which is expected. Pretty good accuracy. Aim time is good, but its aim time is a little bit more than what you'd expect for such a small gun, possibly. And then, of course, the gun doesn't really weigh anything. The Matilda, just as a little kind of piece of trivia, the Matilda II actually, it didn't have hydraulic or mechanical gun elevation controls. Instead, the gunner actually rested the 40mm caliber gun on his shoulder, and that kind of gave it kind of a simulated vertical stabilization system. So it was actually balanced on a mount, and the entire elevation was controlled purely by the muscles of the gunner. It's kind of exciting. I don't know. Okay, so that's your gun on the Matilda II. Now let's look at the Matilda IV. This is a Lend-Lease version of the Matilda, of course, and it is upgunned to a 76mm, though upgun doesn't really quite fit the bill here in World of Tanks. Since the Matilda was designed as an infantry tank, its primary responsibility was to engage infantry, in which the 40mm caliber, the way they write it is kind of weird. Their 40mm gun kind of didn't work very well because, not denying how the British, for whatever reason, did not supply high explosive ammunition for their 40mm guns on their Matildas, so they were actually firing 40mm solid shot at infantry, which was kind of strange. So the primary weapon was actually the coaxial mounted machine gun on the Matilda, and then the 40mm. It's really weird. It's one of those weird things. Like they developed a HE round for this weapon, but it was just never used for whatever reason. So this did not do very well against infantry. However, a 76mm gun that can fire HE would have done well against infantry, since tanks most of the time were fighting infantry, not other tanks. This is a problem though, because this version of the 76mm has very poor penetration, 86mm of penetration at Tier 5. It's very poor. This is one of the this is a terrible gun, or at least its penetration is terrible. Damage is normal for this sort of gun. Dispersion is pretty poor. You've got 0.41 accuracy. That's pretty bad. Its aim time is actually better than the Matilda II's gun, and it weighs like almost like 10 times as much. That was an exaggeration. It weighs significantly more, but not 10 times as much. This gun, though, it's not as bad as it seems. The premium penetration is also terrible, so that doesn't really help the case very much. But the gun depression on this tank, which I'll show you later, is very good. And this gun aims very fast, and it fires very fast, so you can dish out a lot of damage. Because 86 mil, this tank does have premium matchmaking, so it cannot see above tier 6. And many targets, save heavy tanks, don't have much more than 86 millimeters of penetration, or excuse me, armor. So the gun does work out. You'll see that in the replays. I pack 10 APCR rounds, 10 HE rounds, and 40 AP rounds. These tier 5 premium tanks like the T14, the Matilda IV, they do very well with HE sometimes. Like if you just switch from AP to HE and start shooting away at a well-sloped target or something, you can do a whole bunch of damage just using HE. But I save the APCR for hard targets like KV1s, things like that. Primarily KV1s though, because these rounds do not do super well against KV1s. You know, if you come up against a Churchill or something, you can hit the weak spots, but KV1s, their weak spots are pretty strong still. Okay, so now let's have a look at the armor on this tank. Let me just bring up the tank inspector really quick. Okay, here it is, the Matilda IV. We'll make the armor review pretty brief because this armor is the same as the Matilda II in basically every way. You've got this slightly sloped plate, 78 degrees, 80 millimeters on the front. You've got your lower plate, which some players might be tricked into shooting, which is 75 millimeters, sloped back at 60 degrees. So you've got a pretty high armor effectiveness there. The frontal armor is largely about 70 to 75 degrees unsloped. So this is pretty weak from straight on, though sometimes you'll get lucky if a shot might go over here or over here. These two spots are angled back pretty heavily, giving you a fairly high effective armor on the front if someone was to go wide and hit you here or here. The sides have these very large track covers, giving you reasonably high side armor, though there are some weaknesses in there. The track and track cover adds 25 millimeters of armor, and behind that is 40 millimeters of armor. These upper parts are 75 millimeters, and the turret is 75 millimeters all around. The gun mantlet on this tank is very large, and it's angled, so at very close range you might be able to penetrate it, but it is rounded in such a way that it's kind of a mixed bag. You really should just shoot it here, and if you hit it anywhere around here you could end up getting your shell eaten by the mantlet or the gun. So I wouldn't really recommend aiming at this huge mantlet, just aim down here. Hull down tends to work pretty well with this tank because the mantlet basically covers the entire front of the tank. The sides of the turret are 75 and 75, but they are rounded, so if you hit it wide, you likely will bounce off. The rear of the tank is 55 millimeters, and the weakest spot on the rear of the tank is actually this engine cover here, because it is only 20 millimeters. You will likely penetrate that with any shell that you use, except a very low caliber shell. One interesting thing just to point out about the armor on the Matilda is for some reason this section here is one big section. It's one big piece, which it might seem obvious, but at least in all the specifications I've read about the Matilda is that these lines here are actually like a separation. Like the front should keep going onward like this, kind of in a pike shape, like the, not like the IS-3, but like the BT-7. Like there should be like a beak here, but as far as I can tell, there is not a beak there. It's just one continuous piece of armor. I don't know if Wargaming did this intentionally for balance, or if I'm wrong, or if there's something else here, but I'm pretty sure the front of the hull is actually supposed to be shaped like this, and these two sections should be either light spaced armor, or not collision, because these, as I understand, are supposed to be like toolboxes, which are attached to the sides down here. Though I could be wrong on that, but as far as everything I've read and heard, that's what they seem to be implying, unless they're just talking about up here. Anyway, The armor isn't really that much to write home about. If you do a good side scraping maneuver, you'll bounce shots. If you angle and just play it kind of like a heavy medium, because that's what it is. It is a heavy medium, but it's just really slow. I meant to say you should play it as a medium heavy, kind of, but that doesn't work either because it's so slow. So maybe just a I don't know. You gotta play it kind of like a heavy tank, medium tank hybrid. Get into aggressive hull down positions like you would in a medium tank, but try to use cover very effectively, and don't be afraid of taking hits because you've got decent HP and you have great side armor, and your frontal armor, if they hit in the wrong spots, will also bounce shots even at tier 5. But one of the greatest things about this tank that I can show you in this tank inspector is the gun depression. This tank has 14 degrees of gun depression to all sides of the tank. 14 degrees, that's incredibly high. There are some lower tier tanks such as the M2 medium, which has 25 degrees of gun depression with its short barreled howitzer. The M5 has 25 degrees of gun depression to the sides, 15 to the front, but it also uses a short barreled howitzer. There's some higher tier German almost unarmored tank destroyers that are very high gun depression, but they don't have roofs and they don't have any armor. But for this caliber of weapon and this damage, this is a very high amount of gun depression, and you can exploit it very heavily. You can get behind some crazy cliffs and shoot people from where they do not expect it, showing very little bits of your tank, and that definitely gives you a pretty big advantage in a hilly fight. When it comes to city fights and things of that nature, you can use your side armor pretty effective. So this tank does have a fairly high degree of versatility, but you still need to be a good player to succeed in this tank. So now let's go on to some replays. Okay, here's our first replay on Serene Coast. It's a pretty normal tier 5 game. There's about a third split between tier 4s, tier 5s, and tier 3s. It's kind of an exaggeration, but we've got a decent balance here. The level of playmanship is not super high, but it can be expected. Most of the players in this game do not have very many battles. Luckily, we do have Exodus, the Tank Reaper. A Tank Reaper will come in handy. And the other team does have a fairly good SU-85B player with 34k battles, slightly higher WN rating than me, and a very good win ratio in that tank, to the point where that's probably one of his main tanks. Sorry about the map there. Made a poor decision. Okay, so we start out the game, and I'm going to start moving up toward the northwestern corner of Serene Coast, because I think I can do a little bit more good up there, because my mobility won't bog me down. There's some good hills up there. I spot this 3001. I do take a shot at him, but my shot bounces off. He was angled pretty nice, and this gun does only have 86 millimeters of penetration. I don't like to shoot too much gold on this tank, especially after driving the after driving the Valentine II. You'll know what bad penetration is, and you'll know you don't always need gold just because you've got it. Okay, so I'm moving up towards this real hilly area. I'm really zooming in a lot because I'm spying a lot of targets on the way in. Like, the majority of their team appears to have come this way, and the majority of our team has not come this way. I'm the heaviest tank on this side. We do have a Churchill III who is moving up, but he's taking his sweet time, and he kind of has to because he's in a Churchill III, or it's a Churchill 1, excuse me. So I take a shot at this Panzer IV-D, I light him on fire, and then immediately blow him up. This gun has great rate of fire. I spot this Panzer III-4 as he comes down the hill, take another shot at him with my great aim time. The shot actually goes high and ends up hitting his cupola, which looked pretty awesome. I'm spotting this 3001 over there fighting the T-49, but the T-49 makes short work of him. There is the SU-85B player I was worried about, just up ahead there. We've still got 3 to 4 tanks on this side. We can see trees falling down. here I am using my great gun depression to take a shot right at that Panzer IV. I back up just in time for the Su-85B to hit the cliff. And then I deliberately take a hit from that Su-85B just to put a shot into him. And then back up and get some cover and start taking shots at these guys. This Panzer IV-H actually drives up and starts fighting our M7 in a straight-up face-hugging match, but luckily I put some shots into him and took him down. I'm at the bottom of my gun depression right now, so I'm having a little bit of trouble hitting that guy. But if I was in an M4 or something, I'd be nowhere close. I killed the Electo, which is kind of a stolen kill from that M7, but I wasn't really thinking about that right now. And I decided to make my move now. We've got the Su-85B and a Panzer III-4. I move around the corner, take a shot from the Panzer III-4, and then gun him down. And then we've got the Su-85B on the other side, just got taken out by the Churchill 1 who finally got here. Okay, so we just took out all those tanks. Now we're, the enemy team's down to their Vespa over on their side, who's quite the character. And then they've got a, oh, that's a Stug 3B. I didn't really understand that because I haven't seen many of those. And then they've got a KB1 who's out on the peninsula over there. Okay, so our KB1 is in their cap. He is going up against the Stug 3B right now. Not much of a target. He's dead. Stug 3B. Now, if you look at the chat, if you can read it, the Vespa, I don't know if he's trolling or if he's being serious, but he says he's reporting the KV1 for autoloader. I think he's probably just trolling. I don't think he's being serious, but really no way to tell. Okay, so I'm driving forward. I'm going to try to make it out to fight that KV1 because our KV1 seems okay with letting us kill the rest of the guys, but he is just sitting in the cap just in case. And then we've got the our KV1 sitting in the cap, and their KV1 is currently fighting our Matilda and our artillery, which is kind of weird. Slowly moving up on them. Their KV1, I believe, is using the 122 derp gun. And I don't know, I just felt like he was probably going to kill those guys. Though, it kind of does take a little bit of balls to go up 1-to-1 against a 100% KV1 with the 122 derp gun and the Matilda IV. But as you'll see, this guy is not a super high caliber player. Okay, so I decided to load up my gold ammo. I pretty much keep this stuff just for KV1s because they, like, the front of their armor is sloped in such a way that it's over effectiveness of my penetration. At very close range I could probably still penetrate, but I'd need good rolls every time, and the front of his turret is 90mm, which is also higher than my effective penetration with my gun. So I load up gold just for the KV1. I roll down that cliff really fast just as the Su-25 gets taken out. The Su-25 scores a massive 35 damage hit against that KV1. So I decided to try to move around and flank the KV1. I see him there, so I'm moving up. I put a shot right into his engine deck. He starts trying to back up. I put another shot into his engine deck. And I don't know if his engine was broken or what, or if he's a bot, but I just kill him. I put shot after shot after shot into the spot right around his mantlet, and he's dead. That was it. The Vespa reports me for a hack, and the game's over. That was... I don't know if the KV1 was botting and got kills, or if the KV1's engine was damaged, or if I don't know exactly what happened, but that KV1 player was certainly not the best player I've ever seen. Either way, let's watch another replay. Okay, here we've got another replay on Himmelsdorf. This one's fairly short. I skipped straight to the action because this tank is slow. So we're moving up on the hill, me and my platoon mate talking, both of us in our Matilda IVs. We spy a Panzer IV and a Hetzer. They just blew up an M4. This battle is going to show you just a really good example of this tank's gun depression. That's probably one of its greatest strengths. So I decided to move around the right while my platoon mate moves around the left to try to get behind these guys. I'm just kind of surveying the area, and the Hetzer rolls around the corner. I shoot the Hetzer trying to hit his track, but don't quite get it. He tracks me, And I actually have the gun depression to aim straight down at his lower plate and just blow him up like that. Even though he's on lower ground than me, I'm able just to shoot his lower plate and blow him right out of the water. My platoon mate easily dispatched the Panzer IV. So now we're just kind of looking around. We're trying to figure out where the rest of their team is. I spy another Matilda, this time a Matilda II off the cliff, but I can't quite get a shot at him. Then I notice there's actually a TD moving up on the hill, and oh god, it's an AT2. For anyone who knows anything about the AT2, you know, it's got a lot of armor all around. This tank has 102 millimeters of penetration with premium shells. Its main weak spot, the cupola, I believe is 110 millimeters. Maybe 102 millimeters. Either way, we've got problems. I doubled back trying to get this guy to shoot my turret while artillery hopefully takes him out, but he's approaching me fast. I decide to shoot out his track and see if I can get behind him. I know he has over 100 millimeters on the back and sides of his tank, so I know I'm not going to be able to effectively penetrate him from any angle. But I know it's going to be safer to be around the back of him than the front. So I start moving around the back, trying to keep him tracked. And I do put a shot into the side of his driver's area, but that doesn't really do. Then I realize, after dinging another shot off of him, I should be able to actually hit the top of his engine and maybe pen. And I can. This tank's gun depression is good enough that if you get close to an AT2, you can fire down into the top of his engine hatch, which isn't very thick, and just straight up penetrate. I just thought that was pretty impressive that it has high enough gun depression that you can deliberately fire at the top of a tank. So if you're ever driving a Matilda IV and you come across an AT2, that seems like the easiest way to dispatch them. Let's watch another. Okay, so here's one more replay, this time on mines. It's me and my platoon mate and Matilda IVs again. Neither side has any exceptional players, but we do have some KV-1s in play and some pretty good tank destroyers. Okay, so we decided to go off and attack the hill along the one column of mines. Mainly because it's closer, honestly, but these tanks are pretty heavy, so if we come up against some tier 5 mediums or God forbid tier 4s, then they're gonna have an awful lot of trouble doing any kind of damage to us. So sometimes it's best to go the way that the heavy tanks aren't gonna go if you're in a heavier tank, just because you'll be able to kill whoever's up there. Okay, so we run into a T-34, an M5 Stuart, and an M3 Lee on top of this hill. I'm taking shots at the T-34. I'm having a bit of trouble hitting him. I bounce a shot off of him. His frontal armor is roughly 90 millimeters effective. So back at 30 degrees with 45 millimeters of armor. I put a shot into the M5. The M5 gets wiped out. Very short work. My platoon mate's putting shots into the M3 Lee. I'm going to move up on the side and engage this A20. I always feel kind of bad when you have to put down an A20, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Okay. So I put a couple shots into the T-34 and blow him up. And then I opened fire on the A20. We're looping right around these guys. So that's pretty good on the move accuracy, I do say. Adjust the camera. I think this is a slightly older replay, so it's possible that my game client might be screwy. But yeah, anyway, this demonstrates this tank actually has decent on the move mobility. The gun blooming isn't super huge, but that's mainly because it's mainly because the gun is very fast aiming when you stop, and the tank is very slow. So it's it has kind of the Churchill effect. Okay, so we easily wiped out all the tanks in that area. I took a one shot from an A20, and it did not penetrate. This replay really demonstrates the gun quite a lot. It's got great aim time. I just nailed that D2 without even the douche wagon 2, without even needing to try. And I put another shot through him. We've got brothers in arms now. And I think the replay's just about done. Let's see. Anyway, as you can tell from that replay, this gun is certainly capable of dispatching multiple tier 5, possibly tier 4 opponents with ease. And it's very accurate on the move, as well as very quick aiming. I mean, I'm gonna try to claim that it's got good accuracy, because it's like 0.4 accuracy, but for tier 5, that's decent. Anyway, I think that's just about all the replays I want to show you. So, hope this helps you decide if this is a worthy tank or not. Have fun tanking.